Hello, viewers. So, my setup at the moment for my other camera is, well, it's currently in use and it's using the memory card in order to be uploaded. Which is ironic because I'm uploading this video tomorrow. So, so what's the point of this video? This video is talking about the use of artificial intelligence and the way it's sold to you. So, it's become apparent to me that most AI that we interact with as a general public is essentially, and rather ironically, a chatbot, right? A lot of us interact with it as a chatbot, and it becomes apparent to me that OpenAI and a lot of these other companies sell it to us as a chatbot, right? When we think of Claude, we think of programming. When we think of Copilot, we think of nothing. But okay, that's a joke, but it has its uses. But essentially what I find is that a lot of people associate AI with a chatbot, right? As many layman people do. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, it limits the amount of possibilities that you can have with AI. Because essentially it dwarfs everything down into an interaction that is not exactly true. What do I mean by this? So AI in itself, the way to think about AI is like a brain, right? And a lot of models have something called mixture of experts. There's a thinking model. There's scientific research. There is all this kind of stuff, right? That an AI can do, right? So I want to make it clear that it's not just for generating memes and stuff like that, right? I love memes. I love the cats. I love the dogs. I love even the funny ones with people of influence and stuff like that. Yes, it is remarkable what it can do. But I want to make it clear that you can do so much more with it, right? So if you look online, for example, there's something called OpenClaw, which is out there right now. Don't run it. It's not very secure. And I'll make a video on my multi-tech spec channel, I think, showing how to run OpenClaw securely, because I need to do a bit of research and figure out kind of what the vulnerabilities are, because I've been told there's a lot. So we'll get into that in the multi-tech spec channel. But for now, what I want to be clear about is that you can use quite a lot of these OpenAI based models, so like models which are close to OpenAI, in a different way. And you can use it for your things like applications. You can use it for things like your creativity. So what does that mean? It means that with a bit of ingenuity, you can actually make it do more than you think, right? Think about it this way. Like, you can use it to do things like cancer research. So you can actually look at somebody's lungs and say, right, okay, this is where tuberculosis happens. This is where things like respiratory diseases happen, and these sort of things within the lungs. So it can take that MRI-based scan, the X-ray even, and say, right, okay, this is where I think the bacteria lies, which is, amazing when you think about it, because rather than getting a diagnosis from a doctor, right? A doctor absolutely is fantastic because they will tell you in human terms what it means, right? Now, instead of finding out where the analysis is, right, and there's my camera, there we go, she's gone, where the analysis is, they don't need to do that. Now they just tell you the effect of the analysis, like how severe the actual damage is in the tissue of the lungs, right? Which is quite interesting when you think about it, because now the probability of being misdiagnosed goes down significantly, right? Other things you can do with AI, is research into things like stocks, right? Think about it. There's many people online at the moment doing things like stock generation systems for pattern recognition, using machine learning models and all this kind of thing. So what does that mean to you and me as a layman? It means that we are now in an age whereby anything is possible, right? Despite the contradictory nature of the investment, right? Because investment-wise, it just seems a bit of an overblown sort of thing. But at the same time, within 5 or 6 years' time, realistically, we might be seeing some really, really interesting applications coming to light. Some really useful technologies being made as a result of AI, right? But it's going to take time because of all the stuff that I talked about in, the lying that is happening in the AI space in terms of investment. Yeah? So what does that mean? It means that when you think about it, right, with a mixture of experts model, right, which is what some of these AI systems do, you can basically say, right, okay, like I want to figure out what the cheapest prices to go on holiday is, right? And I know Claude has this sort of integration with some of these hotel providers. I think it's Trivago and stuff like that, where you can find out like cheap hotel prices, right? Now imagine if you had that with airline prices, right? And you made a system which says, wow, like I can go on holiday for so much cheaper if I'd use this and then take the payments from directly within the AI, right? I mean, that's pretty cool, right? Now you don't have to go on you don't have to go to Expedia, you don't have to go to Trivago. You have this entire engine which does the cheapest price, right, for your hotel, for your hotel stay, the cheapest price in which you can go on holiday for, right, in the specified dates that you want, and make a suggestion as to when it's the best time to go, saving you even more money. I mean, the possibility is only limited to your imagination, right? So I don't care what Cody Sanchez says, right? Oh, there's going to be another. Shut up. No. What's going to happen is that we're going to be seeing an explosion of creativity, human-based businesses, and connection. That's what we're going to see. Not this rubbish that all these people are saying. No. No. Right? In fact, I'm seeing it in real time when I talk to some of these people, right, who do things like holistic medicine, sound baths, right? PT for gyms, right? We're going to see an increase in that. Why? Because people are going to be prioritizing things like their health more. We're going to be seeing connections coming back into the fray. We're going to be seeing people generally enjoy life more, right? Because when there's no need to work, then the work becomes play. It's as simple as that. And it makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense. And this is how people will be earning a living, right? Because it's going to be, gardening that's going to be interesting. People making models on YouTube with 3D printers, for example, or even making models using Lego, ConnectX, right? Kinect, right? The Kinect systems, where you used to plug them in, that sort of stuff. I think that's going to become more commonplace, whereas educational content will still be there, but it's going to be mainly AI driven. So it's basically going to be things like, how do we make this tensor more effective in our hardware, for example, right? Which is going to be very, very difficult to learn anyway. But if you're going to have bots do it, is there really any reason as to, the point of it? Because by that time, despite having, lots and lots of investment and, the collapse of the investment going through, right, the infrastructure still stays, barely, depending on who's invested in it. And then we'll end up with a state whereby, it's so abundant because people are using it now. It's so abundant in which, the infrastructure and stuff is there, right? But it's underutilized that it becomes cheap. It's like, yeah, okay, I want an AI. Well, it cost me 5 pence to run this query, right? Or hundreds of queries or whatever. Because there's just so much compute there which is not being utilized because of the crash. And it just comes back to supply and demand at the end of the day, right? So I think that makes more sense, right? And, I think people will be reading, meditating, and it will just be this new earth, this new kind of way of living, whereby people are becoming more heart-centric as opposed to mind-centric, and we're going to see kind of more innovation that way. This kind of symbiosis between artificial intelligence and the human heart, yeah? Whereby we'll be seeing some of the greatest creations ever made. Not this kind of AI cat video type of stuff, but, symphonies like Papaute, right? That sort of stuff, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like where we see, what was once from, I can't remember his name, but he was a French artist, right? And then we saw this kind of AI generation whereby we saw this art now coming to the fray, despite it being a rendition. Now, of course, the guy I believe does exist, the actual guy who made the Papaute song. Well, of course he exists, he made the song. But the guy who did the AI rendition, the AI cover, I believe he exists, but I'm not sure, again. But if he doesn't, he's got a brilliant, brilliant voice. But this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about that we'll be seeing more of. Like a kind of hybrid between the human elements and the artificial intelligence. And of course, like I said back in the other video, It's not going to replace humans in any way. It's just not possible, because humans, at the end of the day, we have cognitive ability and creativity that will always, always, always outmaneuver a machine, right? Because think about it this way. It takes so much more processing power to understand what's in here than, putting it on a machine. And there have been conspiracy theories whereby Google's Sycamore, for example, the quantum processing unit for their research, has woven into some of the kind of, well, they call it the ancient patterns of our ancestors, which were coherent to what was there, which is completely strange. But apparently, if you go into the kind of mystical kind of sections, these were things that we knew years and years and years and years and years ago, right? These sort of patterns which were being repeated, which weren't in kind of any books, apparently. Again, I'm skeptical on that. I just think that they got some readings wrong with the equipment, probably due to cooling or interference or coherence issues and that sort of stuff. So, interferences with the measurements, and that wasn't fixed, and that therefore they had to, cancel the project because the systems themselves were just not producing reliable data. So I think that's probably where we're going now. And it's very, very interesting. Optical computing seems to be a new frontier. In fact, there's a Canadian company that I just saw the other day doing 200 billion operations per second, right? And I thought, if you combine that with quantum, right, imagine the amount of computational power that you'll have, right? Trifecta state in light or photonic form. And I'm sure there's a company out there which is doing it already. I know there is one doing it somewhere in the States, I think, or probably in Britain. But I think it's going to be the new frontier, right, in terms of artificial intelligence. But again, the amount of investment needed, you need more than a small country to do that. I mean, we're talking trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of investment. And that's just to make, a significant speed up in terms of AI. It doesn't mean the technology doesn't exist, but the return on investment is questionable at best. So there we go. I mean, let's see what happens. And if you enjoy this video, please like the video. If you didn't like the video, then tell me why in the comment section. And on top of that, I hope you're having a good day. And I'll see you in the next one.